In the previous video, we showed you that we use an intent to launch the WeatherService as a background service that can be used to update the app widget on the home screen. Now again, class WeatherService extends intent service, and by making it a subclass of an intent service, we get a framework that enables our WeatherService class to run in a separate thread of execution that we don't have to create. All of that's managed for us, and it also gives us certain methods that can be called automatically, such as the onHandleIntent method that we'll look at in just a moment. Now you'll notice this class also implements forecast listener, which we've looked at previously, and basically when the read forecast task that we'll launch later on in this code completes, we need to notify the listener of that event so that we can then create the remote views for the Weather Viewer app widget that's displayed on the home screen. Now, when the intent is used to launch the WeatherService, if it's not already up and running, a new WeatherService object will be created and its constructor will be called, and the superclass constructor call here is basically just passing a string to the superclass constructor to name the thread of execution that's going to perform the tasks of the WeatherService. At lines 85 through 87, we have three instance variables in this class. One is a resources object, which we're going to use to obtain string resources, for example, from the app itself, and then strings to represent the zip code string and the location string. Now, whether or not the WeatherService was already running, when we use the intent to launch the WeatherService to perform an update, the onHandleIntent method will get called, and that's why we've overridden that method. At line 92, we obtain the applications resources object by getting the application context for the WeatherService. So the applications context is the Weather Viewer apps context itself, and then we use that context object to get the resources object that allows us to load up resources, for example, from the arrays and strings .xml files underneath values here in the res directory. At line 94 and 95, we get the intent string extra that represents the zip code and store that in zip code string. And then, as we do in the app itself, we use a read location task to load up the location information based on the zip code, and when the zip code or when the location data is retrieved, the WeatherService location loaded listener will be called to then kick off the loading of the weather data itself.